starting with 1 million luck points. Chapter 106, Be Careful. Swoosh. Suddenly, a cold black python rushed out of the pool. Be careful, it's the Blackman demon python. Zhang Yi heard the commotion and shouted anxiously. Zhou Hao reacted very quickly. He grabbed Su Ling's arm with one hand and quickly stuck the saber in the gap with the other. Then, his figure retreated explosively. Pu. The Blackman demon python pounced at lightning speed. Before it could even see the saber, it opened its bloody mouth and swallowed the tip of the saber. The saber immediately pierced through the Blackman demon python's upper jaw. Zhang Yi. Zhou Hao shouted. Zhang Yi regained his senses and charged forward. He held his saber and slashed at the Blackman demon python's head. Swoosh, the sharp saber cut off the Blackman demon python's head. Dark black blood flowed out, making the rocks below emit a corrosive sizzling sound. Su Ling's pretty face was pale as she watched this scene. She knew that if Zhou Hao had not caught her in time, she would have definitely died miserably. It had to be known that the Blackman demon python was a high-level demon warrior with the most intense venom. The venom would corrode the T3 armor and cause it to melt in just a few seconds. Zhou Hao, thank you. She turned around and thanked him sincerely. What's there to be polite about? After all, didn't you already promise to become my wife? Zhou Hao smiled. This time, Su Ling did not glare at Zhou Hao again. Zhang Yi said, Su Ling, Zhou Hao, in our biology materials class, our teacher once said that there are rare plants near the Blackman demon python. There might be treasures in the pool. Plop. As soon as Zhang Yi finished speaking, Zhou Hao jumped into the pool without hesitation. Be careful. Su Ling couldn't help but remind worriedly. Swoosh. Not long after, Zhou Hao emerged from the depths of the pool. He laughed and said, Zhang Yi, good thing you paid attention in biology materials class. As expected, I found a treasure. It's the ice needle mushroom. What? It's actually the ice needle mushroom. Su Ling and Zhang Yi were both stunned, but soon, their faces revealed excitement. The ice needle mushroom was a precious plant with a rare plant spirit. As long as it was a plant spirit, it would have an extremely powerful medicinal effect. It was 100 times more valuable than the purple leaf earth ginseng, the green lattice grass, and the red blood fruit. Plant spirits were true natural treasures. Zhou Hao, quick, look at how many blood-colored lines are on the back of this ice needle mushroom. Su Ling seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly asked. Zhou Hao also reacted and turned the ice needle mushroom over. There are 3 blood-colored lines. Su Ling immediately heaved a sigh of relief and said excitedly, that's great. Not only does the ice needle mushroom with 2 blood-colored lines not have any medicinal effect, but it's also extremely poisonous. However, the 3 blood-colored lines are the best plant spirits. After consuming it, one can advance to a high-level master in a short period of time. Zhou Hao swam to the edge of the pool and went ashore with a smile. In that case, we'll definitely win this time. Zhang Yi nodded heavily. Although this ice needle mushroom only has 3 blood-colored lines and has not fully matured, its value is definitely far greater than the 18 resources we discovered before. Moreover, plant spirits are extremely rare. We were lucky to encounter one. That Fang Yu probably isn't as lucky. Su Ling's smile widened. Fang Yu will definitely lose this time. Zhou Hao shook his head and said, I originally wanted the green lattice grass for the bet, but I didn't expect us to obtain the ice needle mushroom. The green lattice grass is insignificant now. However, it's still not bad to be able to see Fang Yu suffer. Su Ling and Zhang Yi couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. In the depths of Area 251, Fang Yu, Lei Jinpeng, and the other Yanjing genius teams were still searching, and their faces were filled with joy. The wilderness area after the beast wave attack is really filled with gold. The military leader of Huadong City is really generous to let the students participate. Lei Jinpeng said with a relaxed tone. Fang Yu smiled faintly and said, the overall strength of the Huadong city is relatively weak. All the high schools don't even have a single martial artist. The military leaders probably want to take this opportunity to increase the students' strength. After all, the future of a city depends on the students. Yunyan nodded and said softly, Commander Zhao and the others are still willing to do something for the city. Just on this point alone, they are much better than the higher UPS of the Yanjing city. Yuan Cheng shook his head and said, the social statuses in Yanjing city are indeed severely fixed, but this is only natural when the city has developed to a certain extent. Huadong city is still in the development stage, so it's naturally flourishing. Brother Yuan is right. Another thin boy who had a depressed personality spoke up in agreement. Lei Jinpeng placed the saber on his shoulder. No matter what, we've gained a lot this time. Some of them are also helpful to our strength. We should be able to increase our strength to a high-level martial artist when we return. Fang Yu narrowed her eyes. I wonder how Su Ling's team is doing. I noticed previously that they seem to be heading towards Area 268. That place is even farther away than ours. So what if it's far? Some resources are very difficult to discover without rich experience. Lei Jinpeng was full of confidence as he said indifferently, don't worry, nothing will go wrong this time. Chapter 107, Too Powerful. Fang Yu, why do you have to compete with Su Ling and the others? We're all in the same class. We should get along considering that we'll see each other frequently in the future. Yuan Cheng couldn't help but say. Fang Yu snorted. I just can't stand Su Ling and Zhou Hao. They're just two guys who rely on luck. It's really humiliating for them to break the virtual cabin newbie record. Yunyan shook her head as she listened. In her opinion, Fang Yu was a decent person, but she was a little arrogant. Time passed slowly. Outside the South Station's defense line gate, the teachers and instructors of the various high schools were standing at the edge of the wilderness area. They looked at their watches anxiously. In the past 4 days, they had been unaware of the situation of the students who had entered the wilderness. Shen Jing's expression was calm. He had long learned from Battalion Commander Chu that although many students had been injured in this wilderness cleanup operation, no one had died. Most of the high school student teams were afraid and only searched at the edge of the deeper areas. Therefore, they were not in danger at all. On the other hand, the situation of the student team from Chu City's high school training class had fallen into danger quite a few times. Fortunately, they had the help of the military camp martial artists to resolve the danger. This is a rare opportunity. I hope you guys can gain something. Shen Jing sighed in his heart. Usually, it's very hard for students with ordinary talent to break through the blood essence barrier. And although it was easy for students with better family backgrounds to advance to the martial artist realm, these students still needed more cultivation resources to advance to a higher level. And this time, the military leaders had opened up all the wilderness areas, and it was even during the vacant period after the Beast Wave attack. To many students, this was a chance for them to rise up. If they grasped this opportunity, they could change their fate. If not, they could only continue being an ordinary person. Principal Zheng and the dean were also standing beside Shen Jing. They kept staring at the wilderness with anxious expressions. They're back, they're back. Suddenly, someone shouted. On the road leading to the wilderness area of the city, some student teams covered in dried blood appeared one after another. They walked over with tired expressions. Swoosh! Swoosh! The teachers and instructors of the various high schools rushed up to show their concern. Many students immediately began to wail and complain about their grievances at the sight of the teachers and instructors. It's too difficult, teacher. We almost died in there. Yeah, I won't participate in such an operation again. I miss Dad and Mom. I want to go home. Many students were already exhausted and sat on the ground unsteadily. The school leader hurriedly consoled, it's good that guys came back alive. Not long after, Chu City High School's student team gradually appeared on the street. They were also in a sorry state. Principal Zheng, the dean, and department director Hong also rushed forward. How was it? Did you guys gain anything? They couldn't help but ask after seeing the students. After all, they still had high hopes for the Year 3 students of Chu City High School. These student teams shook their heads. Teacher, principal, those demon warriors are too powerful. We can't resist them at all and can only hide. How can we have the time to find anything else? That's right. It's already very good that they survived. Principal Zheng and the dean's faces darkened and they were disappointed. As the sky became darker and darker, the number of students returning from the wilderness increased. Among them were many teams from Chu City's high school training class. Instructor Shen, who had been standing rooted to the ground, slowly walked forward. When the students from the focused training class saw Instructor Shen, they automatically lined up. Wang Ming, how's your team's performance? Instructor Shen looked at Wang Ming and the others. Wang Ming stepped forward and hurriedly took out everything from his armor and backpack. Swoosh! Swoosh! Immediately, many demon warrior materials and some precious resources appeared on the ground. Wow, it's the red blood fruit, the thousand-faced flower. Damn, there are more than 30 low-level demon warriors and 3 intermediate-level demon warriors' corpses. How impressive! Many students from the other high schools gathered around and looked at the things on the ground. They were all shocked and envious. The principal and instructors sighed. As expected of the training class focused on by the Education Bureau, their combat strength is indeed impressive. That's right. Intermediate-level demon warriors are not easy to deal with. Their 5-person team was able to kill 3 of them. Their teamwork is absolutely perfect. Hi, should our school also find a chance to establish a training class? Instructor Shen listened to the surrounding discussion, but his expression did not change. He swept his gaze over the red blood fruit and the thousand-faced flower and said indifferently, your gains were average. Wang Ming and the others' expressions collapsed. Li Ji. Instructor Shen looked at Li Ji's 7-man team again. Swoosh! Swoosh! Just like Wang Ming's team, Li Ji walked forward and took out all their gains. Be it the demon warrior materials or precious resources, he had more gains than Wang Ming's team. There was even a green lattice grass that was worth more than the one Fang Yu had taken out previously. Not bad. Instructor Shen finally smiled. Li Ji and his 7-man team clenched their fists tightly, their faces filled with excitement. To be able to get the strict Instructor Shen's approval meant that their gains this time were indeed not bad. The other high school students were envious and jealous. Each of these resources could easily allow them to break through their blood essence barriers and advance to the next level. Look, it's Fang Yu and Yuan Cheng from the Yanjing Genius team. Suddenly, someone shouted. Chapter 108, they're back. Swoosh! 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 One by one, everyone's gazes moved to the calm and relaxed Yuan Cheng and the others. Are they the geniuses transferred from the Yanjing training camp? It's said that everyone from there is as strong as a high-level martial artist. I wonder how they performed this time. When Yuan Cheng, Fang Yu, and the others saw Instructor Shen, they hurriedly walked over and joined them. How was your team's harvest? Instructor Shen looked at Fang Yu and her teammates. Moreover, he had also heard about the bet between Fang Yu and Su Ling. Fang Yu walked out proudly and took out everything from her armor backpack. Swoosh! The items piled up into a small mountain. Damn, that's too much. There are 13 high-level demon warriors. There are no less than 50 intermediate-level demon warriors. How valiant! As expected of someone from the Yanjing training camp. There are also a lot of precious resources. Damn, there are actually 23 types. I'm so envious. Their gains are too great. That's right. If we had known that the wilderness area actually had so many good things, we would have also gone deeper. The students of the other high schools were so jealous that their eyes turned red, and they also regretted their decision. As for Wang Ming, Li Ji, and the other students from Chu City High School, they looked at the pile of materials and shook their heads with a bitter smile. Where's Su Ling, Zhou Hao, and Zhang Yi? Why aren't they back yet? I don't know, could something have happened? Maybe their gains were too little and they don't want to be embarrassed. They're probably still hunting in the wilderness. Someone yelled out. When Fang Yu heard this, her lips curled into a sneer. Her eyes swept over Wang Ming, Li Ji, and the other students, as if she was saying, I'll be the big sister of the class from now on. Wang Ming, Li Ji, and the other students looked at Fang Yu and lowered their heads. Yuan Cheng and Yun Yan shook their heads speechlessly when they saw this. Not bad. Instructor Shen smiled. He looked at the team and then looked at his watch. There are still some students who haven't returned. Everyone, continue to wait. Time passed bit by bit, and most of the students returned one after another. Even the 10 martial artist teams that had entered the wilderness earlier had returned. However, because of their poor quality armor, nearly a third of them had died in the wilderness this time. However, their faces did not have much grief, as if they were already used to it. Seeing a large group of students gathered together, these martial artist teams also walked forward curiously. Is this supposed to be the gains from an entire school? It's so little. Seeing the items on the ground, these martial artist teams sneered and shook their heads. A student shouted angrily, "What do you guys know? These are the gains of a training class." What? The gains from a single class? Are you serious? Are you kidding me? None of the students have reached the level of a martial artist. How could a class of students collect so many demon warrior materials? The martial artist team did not believe it at all. A student wanted to refute, but at this moment, someone in the Chu City training class shouted, "Instructor, Su Ling, Zhou Hao, and Zhang Yi are back." Swoosh! 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 Many students looked towards the wilderness area. Although the sky had long darkened, the lights outside the city were very bright. As Zhou Hao and the other two approached, many students also saw the blood on their armor. They look rather tragic. They probably encountered many demon warriors. Compared to Yuan Cheng, Fang Yu, and the others, the situation is much worse. There's definitely no way to compare them. Among the three of them, only Su Ling is strong. Zhang Yi can barely help, but Zhou Hao is simply a burden. The students of the training class began to discuss one after another, their voices filled with disdain for Zhou Hao. After all, if they lost this bet, the students in the class would be suppressed by the new big sister, Fang Yu. When Zhou Hao and the other two walked over, the students gathered in 3 circles automatically opened a path. The 3 of them walked along the path in confusion. Seeing the team in front of Instructor Shen, they instinctively walked over and stood in line. The students of the other high schools surrounded them again. While they were waiting, they all learned about the bet between the Yanjing genius of the training class and the most outstanding student of Chu City High School, Su Ling. Whether it was Fang Yu or Su Ling, their faces and figures were excellent. Therefore, everyone was curious to find out who would win in the end. Even the principal and teachers of the other high schools took the opportunity to stay behind to watch the bet. Chapter 109, Big Surprise. Instructor Shen looked at Su Ling and said, "Su Ling, the other students' results for this wilderness cleanup operation are all here. Now, only your team is left." Su Ling nodded and stepped out. Then, she took out everything from her armor bag. Swoosh! Swoosh! A large pile of demon warrior materials fell to the ground. Although there were 6 high-level, 20 intermediate-level, and more than 100 low-level demon warrior corpses inside, the other students were not impressed. After seeing the gains of the Fang Yu team, the other students were only surprised for a moment and did not have any other reaction. Instructor Shen smiled. Not bad. Su Ling, your team did well. He knew that there were only 3 people in Su Ling's team, and Zhou Hao was one of them. Therefore, it was already extremely rare for them to obtain so many demon warrior materials. Thank you, instructor. Su Ling smiled. At this moment, Fang Yu, who was standing in the team, walked out and smiled faintly. Instructor, it seems that Su Ling's team has lost the bet. According to the rules, she should call me big sister in front of all the students. Also, there's Zhou Hao. He should kneel on the ground and count out 3 times. Shen Jing frowned and looked at Fang Yu. Are you sure you want to do this? It had to be known that not only were the students from Chu City High School around, but there were also students from other high schools. Once Su Ling and Zhou Hao did this, they would never be able to lift their heads again. Forget about Zhou Hao. After all, his strength was relatively low. However, Su Ling was an outstanding student that Shen Jing thought highly of and had great potential. He did not intend to let Fang Yu humiliate Su Ling. Fang Yu naturally heard the dissatisfaction in Instructor Shen's voice, but she still looked up and insisted, I'm sure. Instructor Shen's expression darkened. Zhou Hao walked out slowly and said indifferently, Fang Yu, I think our bet was a little unfair. Fang Yu sneered. She knew that Zhou Hao would play tricks and not fulfill the bet. Oh? Which part is unfair? Of course I'm talking about the terms of the bet. Although you are willing to give up your green lattice grass, it's still nothing compared to my dignity and Su Ling's. Zhou Hao said indifferently. Then what do you think we should do? Fang Yu looked at Zhou Hao. She wanted to see what he was up to. Zhou Hao snapped his fingers. Simple. If you lose, then I'll add another condition. Other than the green lattice grass, you have to bow and call Su Ling big sister. Fang Yu laughed out loud. Zhou Hao, is there something wrong with your head? Our team has already won, why are you still changing the terms of the bet? Zhou Hao snorted. It's up to you whether you agree or not. All right, I agree. Fang Yu nodded without thinking. Zhou Hao clicked his tongue and laughed. Fang Yu, you're too impatient. Su Ling also covered her mouth and smiled. She had deliberately not taken out the precious resources because she wanted Fang Yu to make a fool of herself. Previously, she had been furious at Fang Yu for trying to get Zhou Hao to kneel and count out 3 times. Hearing Zhou Hao's words, the smile on Fang Yu's face disappeared. She stared at Su Ling and had a bad feeling. Indeed. Su Ling opened her armor backpack and slowly took out all the precious resources inside. It's the triangular purple pattern scorpion. Red blood fruit, cat's eye heartstone. Damn, it's a purple leaf earth ginseng. There's more, there's more. 1,2. 18 different precious resources. As Su Ling took the items out, the surrounding students constantly cried out in surprise. Countless eyes stared fixedly at the precious resources. Fang Yu's expression changed drastically. Although Su Ling had already taken out 18 different precious resources, their total value had yet to exceed the value of resources Fang Yu's team had brought back. However, she quickly regained her senses and said coldly, Su Ling, I have to admit that you're indeed very lucky. But even if these 18 different precious resources of yours are worth a lot, don't forget that you still have to account for the materials for the Demon Warrior. The total value of the Demon Warrior materials and precious resources we collected should still be higher than yours, right? As she spoke, she looked at the instructor. Instructor Shen sighed. He had not expected Su Ling's team of 3 to bring back so many precious resources. If any of these resources were placed in the city, it would cause countless buyers to fight over them. Unfortunately, the total value of all the items collected by Fang Yu's team has indeed exceeded Su Ling's team. This is according to the market rates of Huadong City. Instructor Shen shook his head. Hi, what a pity. Yeah, and they were so close to winning. In the end, they still lost because their total value was lower. It's not fair. There are only 3 people in Su Ling's team, and there are 5 people in Fang Yu's team. Moreover, all of them are geniuses. Su Ling's team even has a burden. So what if it's unfair? They agreed to the terms of the bet back then. I remember Zhou Hao agreed to it, right? Many students sighed. The students from Chu City's high school training class looked at Zhou Hao angrily. Zhou Hao shrugged, looking indifferent. Su Ling smiled and said, "Instructor Shen, I still have something relatively precious in my backpack that I haven't taken out. I can't put it on the ground. Please help me get a basin of water." Instructor Shen was stunned. There's more. Most of the surrounding students were also stunned. Chapter 110, This is Injustice. Yes. Su Ling nodded heavily. All right. Instructor Shen suddenly stomped his foot and leaped out. He quickly retrieved a basin from the army camp. He returned to the group and asked, "Does anyone still have water?" "I do." Many students went forward and poured water into a basin. Fang Yu's expression was ugly as she clenched her fists tightly and looked at Su Ling nervously. Su Ling slowly took out the ice needle mushroom and placed it in the water basin. Chi! Chi! The cold aura of the ice needle mushroom immediately froze the water basin. Heavens! It's a plant spirit, the ice needle mushroom. What? It's actually an ice needle mushroom. What kind of luck is this? This is crazy. How did they find an ice needle mushroom? This. Ah, I'm jealous. Although the ice needle mushroom is only the lowest level plant spirit, it's still a plant spirit. The moment the surrounding students, school leaders, teachers, instructors, and martial artist teams saw the ice needle mushroom, their eyes surged with shock and disbelief. Plant spirits were an extremely rare cultivation resource that was classified as a natural treasure. Every type of plant spirit was nurtured by the essence of the world's energy. A plant spirit was a treasure that could only be chanced upon by luck. Instructor Shen was also stunned. He stared fixedly at the ice needle mushroom in the basin that had instantly frozen the water into ice. He could not help but lean closer and look down at the back of the ice needle mushroom. 3 blood-colored lines. Ha ha ha, Su Ling, your luck sure is good. After confirming that this ice needle mushroom could be consumed, he laughed excitedly. When Fang Yu heard this, the only hope she had disappeared completely. Her elegant face was filled with shock, and her body could not help but retreat, as if she had lost her soul. When Lei Jinpeng saw this, he hurriedly went forward to support Fang Yu. He gritted his teeth and sighed. We lost. I didn't expect Su Ling to be able to find a plant spirit. This is injustice. Yuan Cheng, Yun Yan, and the others looked at each other and saw a bitter smile and helplessness in each other's eyes. They had never expected the other team would be able to find a plant spirit. However, they could only admit defeat. The other team was really lucky to have come across a rare plant spirit. That lucky bracelet sure is a top-grade item. Yuan Cheng couldn't help but look at the bracelet on Su Ling's wrist, his eyes revealing deep envy. Yun Yan couldn't help but nod. That's right. No. Suddenly, Fang Yu struggled free from Lei Jinpeng's support and walked in front of Su Ling in a few steps. She gritted her teeth and said, You cheated. Without waiting for Su Ling to speak, she shouted in a voice that was almost a roar, how could such a rare plant spirit be found in the wilderness? You must have prepared it beforehand. That's definitely the case. Swoosh. 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 Countless gazes looked at Fang Yu with pity. This Yanjing genius is too sore a loser. Yeah, she's a little crazy. Although Su Ling's family background is good, it's still impossible for her to have a plant spirit. That's right. If the Su family had a plant spirit, Su Ling's father would have long become a high-level master. Or if he had used it on Su Ling, she would have also become a high-level grandmaster. This is something even children understand. The students discussed bluntly. Su Ling did not say a word and stared coldly at Fang Yu. When Fang Yu heard the discussion, her body trembled. She muttered, "Impossible, impossible. All of you are lying." Zhou Hao took a few steps forward and said indifferently, "Fang Yu, are you not going to hold up your end of the bet?" As he spoke, he condensed his blood essence into a thread and suddenly pressed it towards Fang Yu. Fang Yu, who was originally in a daze, immediately woke up. I, she stammered, unable to speak. "Enough!" Instructor Shen shouted. Immediately, the surrounding discussion disappeared. Instructor Shen looked at Fang Yu and shook his head. "Fang Yu, I'm very disappointed in you. In addition, since you've made a bet, you have to fulfill the bet. The students of the Yanjing training camp are not sore losers." Fang Yu bit her lip. She was a very proud girl. She would rather die than bow and call Su Ling big sister in front of so many students. Su Ling naturally could tell that Fang Yu did not want to fulfill the bet. She said, "Instructor Shen, forget it. However, I have a suggestion. If she doesn't fulfill the bet, then she can just withdraw from the training class." Fang Yu's eyes widened when she heard this.